Today's recipe is for individual pineapple upside down cake. Now this recipe is going to make 2 cakes, and we're going to start with a base of a fluffy white cake topped with pineapple, maraschino cherry, then an ooey gooey brown sugar topping. Now I have a funny and somewhat embarrassing story about pineapple upside down cake that I'm going to share with you, so keep watching. And be sure to join me in the kitchen as we make small batch recipes with big taste. So for our individual pineapple upside down cake, we're going to use these 7-ounce ramekins. First thing we're going to do is just spray them with my favorite non-stick spray. Just give them a light coating, right? And then in the bottom of each of them, we are going to put in a half of a tablespoon of melted butter. This is going to help create that ooey gooey caramel layer. And then into that, we are going to put a half of a tablespoon of brown sugar. Just go ahead and kind of, you can get it off the spoon, sprinkled in the bottom. And then one thing, little tip for you. One thing I discovered in moving to Utah, where it is extremely dry, is your brown sugar gets rock hard. But then I found this cute little clay bear on Amazon that I soaked in water, put in there, and my brown sugar stays soft. So if your brown sugar gets hard, check that out. So on top of our brown sugar, we're going to take, I'm just using canned pineapple, 1 little ring. It fits perfectly into my ramekin. That's going to go in there. And then next, we're going to take some maraschino cherries. Now, the maraschino cherry kind of, I never end up eating it, but it makes it look prettier. So worst case scenario, you don't have maraschino cherries, you can totally make this. Mine have stems, so I'm going to remove the stem and place that right in the center of the pineapple ring. And then we're going to set these aside, and we are going to mix up our cake batter. So for the cake batter, you are going to use a 1/3 cup of all-purpose flour, 3 tablespoons of granulated sugar, 1/2 teaspoon, I'm almost out of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, and then 1/8 teaspoon of salt. Just kind of give that a little stir. Then we are going to add in 1 tablespoon, this is a 1/2 tablespoon, so we'll do it twice, of melted butter. I am using salted butter. And then 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract. I never measure, I just pour. And 1/2 teaspoon of almond extract. This is going to give the cake such good flavor. Now, if perchance you are not a fan of almond extract, just use all of vanilla extract. All right, and into that, then we are going to add some buttermilk. I'm using a 1/4 cup of buttermilk. If you don't have buttermilk, you can just use regular milk. But I just love buttermilk. I think makes a cake more tender. Mix that all up. Then we are ready to put the batter into our little ramekins. We're just going to divide it in half, put half in one and half in the other. Now, if you've been waiting for that funny story I was going to tell you. Well, when I was in middle school, I grew up in Wisconsin. I went to a private girls' school, and so we had home ec, and because it was just smaller, I think my whole class, 7th grade class, there were like 8 girls and 8 boys. So we were in home ec, and it was the first day of home ec. Now, my mom had not, I didn't have much experience in the kitchen. Let's just put it that way. And but the first day of home ec, we made pineapple upside down cake. And I remember the teacher asked me to go ahead and get a piece of plastic wrap, saran wrap, to put over the top of the cake. So I had never used a box of saran wrap before. Unaware that there was a blade inside of it, and as I pushed down at it, of course, it sliced into my hand, gashed my hand open, and I had to go to the emergency room for stitches on my first day of home ec. So I never make or eat pineapple upside down cake without thinking of that somewhat silly and embarrassing story. So let's go ahead. We're going to put this in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 minutes. We want to bake it just until the cake has a nice little golden brown around the edges, slightly pulls away from the dish, and springs back when you touch it. And a toothpick will come out clean. Oh, and here's one tip for you. When I am doing these small batch cooking, especially with these little dishes, I like to take a baking sheet, put my baking dishes on top of this, and then put it into the oven. It makes getting it in and out of the oven so much easier. After you pull them out of the oven, let them sit for about 5 minutes to cool down a bit, and then we are going to flip them upside down onto a plate, take off the top, and voila, there you have it. Pineapple upside down cake. Now, let me grab a fork. I like eating it when it's still a little bit warm because that ooey gooey brown sugar layer on top that soaks into the pineapple and into the top of the cake is so good. You're totally gonna wanna try it. So I hope you'll enjoy this recipe. Check out my other yummy recipes for two down below, and I'll see you in the next video.